Imagine this. You are a German soldier stationed near Monte Cassino in 1944. It's pitch dark. You're on night patrol. Everything seems quiet. Then gunshots. A shadow moves. Your squadmate disappears. No sound, no trace. And by morning, 3 more patrols have vanished. No evidence, no survivors. Now you might think this sounds like a movie plot, but it actually happened. And this terrifying, ghost-like force was so effective. Even the Germans started calling them Geistersoldaten, the ghost soldiers. But who were they? And why don't we learn about them in history books? Well, this is the story of a forgotten Polish unit that operated in the shadows during one of the most brutal and prolonged battles of World War II. The Battle of Monte Cassino. So let's rewind a bit. By early 1944, the Allies were stuck in Italy. The Germans had fortified a powerful defensive position known as the Gustav Line, and right in the center of it, perched on a hilltop, was the ancient Benedictine monastery of Monte Cassino. Now, capturing this location was critical for the Allies to break through and advance north, but the problem? The Germans held the high ground. Over for major assaults, thousands of Allied troops from the US, UK, India, France, New Zealand, and Poland were thrown into the fight, and the casualty numbers kept rising. Among them was the 2nd Polish Corps, made up of soldiers who had been through absolute hell. Many of them had been prisoners in Soviet gulags before being released and allowed to fight for the Allies. These were not ordinary soldiers. They were men who had lost everything: homes, families, their country. And from within this group, a smaller, unofficial unit emerged, led by a man named Captain Władysław Matuszek. Now, here's where it gets interesting. During one failed offensive, Matuszek and around 100 of his men were cut off from the main force. Communication lines were severed. Supplies were gone. Command thought they were dead. But instead of surrendering, they adapted. They moved into the hills and ruins around Monte Cassino and started fighting in a completely different way, not as a traditional unit, but like guerrillas. Using abandoned trenches, forest cover, and even old Roman tunnels, they launched night raids, ambushed supply convoys, and sabotaged German equipment. And because no Allied unit had officially reported these actions, the Germans thought some kind of supernatural force was haunting them. Hence the nickname, the Ghost Battalion. Now, here's the chilling part. The Polish command also had no idea these men were still alive. But their attacks were helping to soften German defenses ahead of the final assault on the monastery. In fact, there are multiple instances recorded where Allied bombings were more effective because this Ghost Battalion had transmitted exact coordinates through stolen German radios, and the real twist, these messages were in Polish. So eventually, Allied command intercepted one of them and realized, wait, these are our guys. But by the time they pieced it all together, the damage was done to the Germans. When the final assault came in May 1944, the 2nd Polish Corps officially stormed Monte Cassino and planted their flag on the ruins. But many forget this victory was paved by months of terror, disruption, and confusion caused by a unit that wasn't even supposed to exist. So what happened to them after the battle? That's the tragic part. There was no official record of Matuszek's battalion. Some believe they returned quietly to their ranks. Others say they were scattered or killed. And as for Captain Matuszek himself, he was never found. No grave, no medal, no recognition. It's almost as if they wanted to remain ghosts. So why should we remember them today? Because their story reflects something much bigger about World War II and war in general. Sometimes, the most important contributions come from those who never get credit. These men didn't fight for headlines. They didn't have air support, logistics, or even orders. They fought for survival, for vengeance, and for a homeland that, at the time, didn't even exist on the map. Poland had been wiped off by Hitler and Stalin. And yet, Polish soldiers were among the fiercest on every front: Italy, France, the UK, even in North Africa. But unfortunately, after the war, when Poland was handed over to Soviet influence, these soldiers were often sidelined, forgotten, or even labeled as traitors. The Ghost Battalion of Monte Cassino is just one example. And it forces us to ask, how many other stories have been buried under politics, borders, and shifting alliances? Monte Cassino is remembered today as a key Allied victory. But behind that flag raised on the ruins, there were men who fought with no backup, no recognition, and no future, just a will to fight, and a reason not to stop. So, the next time someone tells you war is about generals, tanks, and strategy, maps remember this. Sometimes it's about a small group of soldiers, cut off and presumed dead, choosing to become ghosts ... so others could live.